Park Ji-woo wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the broken pipe in front of him. The protocol center was the most advanced building in Seoul, maybe in all of Earth. But pipes still broke, computers still failed, and someone still had to fix them. That someone was usually Ji-woo. He was 28 years old, average height, with the kind of face people forgot 5 minutes after meeting him. He had worked at the protocol center for 3 years, fixing things that broke and making sure the important people never had to think about how their lights turned on or their water stayed clean. Today was different. Today, the aliens had arrived. The Valari Empire had made contact with Earth 6 months ago. Their ships had appeared in the sky like silver moons, beautiful and terrifying. After months of careful communication, they had agreed to send a diplomatic delegation. Not just any delegation, but a royal one. The Emperor and Empress themselves, along with their daughter, the princess. Ji-woo had watched the arrival on a small screen in the maintenance room. He had seen the tall, silver-skinned beings walk down from their ship. They moved like water, smooth and graceful. Their eyes were large and violet, and their hair flowed like silk in colors no human had ever seen. They were beautiful in a way that made him feel small and ordinary, which he was, small and ordinary, a maintenance worker in a building full of generals and diplomats. His friend Kim Yuna had watched with him. She was the same age, with short black hair and a sharp tongue that got her in trouble at least once a week. "They look like gods," she had said. "They look like trouble," Ji-woo had replied. Now, 3 hours later, he was crawling through a maintenance tunnel while the most important diplomatic meeting in human history happened somewhere above him. An alarm had gone off in his earpiece. A small one, the kind only maintenance workers heard. Something was wrong with the environmental systems in Section 7. Section 7 was where the Valari delegation was staying. He had reported it immediately. His supervisor had told him to wait, that they would send a specialized team. But the numbers on his tablet kept getting worse. The oxygen mix was changing. The temperature was dropping. If the Valari needed specific conditions to breathe, and if those conditions failed, Ji-woo did not wait for the specialized team. He moved through the tunnels quickly, his tool bag hitting against his leg with each step. The tunnels were dark and tight, designed for machines more than people, but Ji-woo knew them like he knew his own apartment. He had spent 3 years learning every path, every shortcut, every hidden corner. When he reached Section 7, his tablet showed critical levels. Something had damaged the main environmental unit. A power surge, maybe. Or sabotage. He did not have time to figure out which. He opened the access panel and found the problem immediately. 3 connectors had melted. The backup system had failed to start. In about 4 minutes, the air in the Valari chambers would become toxic to them. Ji-woo worked fast. His hands moved without thinking, years of practice guiding every motion. He pulled out the damaged connectors and replaced them with spares from his bag. He rerouted power through a secondary line. He kicked the backup system until it hummed to life. The numbers on his tablet slowly returned to normal. He let out a long breath and leaned against the wall. His hands were shaking. He had just saved the lives of alien royalty, and no one even knew he was here. That was when he heard the voice. "You are the one who fixed it." Ji-woo turned so fast he almost fell. Standing in the shadows of the tunnel was a figure. Tall, silver-skinned, with hair the color of moonlight. She wore a simple white dress, not the formal robes he had seen on the screens. Her violet eyes studied him with an intensity that made him want to look away. The princess. The actual princess was standing in a maintenance tunnel, looking at him. Yes, Ji-woo managed to say. "The system failed. I fixed it. You did not wait for permission," she said. There was no time. She tilted her head, a gesture that seemed curious rather than threatening. "Our guards did not know. Our sensors did not warn us. But you knew. You came alone, without weapons, without protection. Why? Jiwoo did not know how to answer. He looked down at his dirty uniform, his worn tool bag, his ordinary hands. It is my job, he finally said. Things break. I fix them. That is what I do. The princess was silent for a long moment. Then she did something strange. She smiled. It was small and quick, but it was real. Among my people, she said, we wait for orders. We wait for the proper authority to act. We wait until we are certain of the correct path. Your people do not wait. Sometimes waiting means people get hurt, Jiwoo said. Yes, she agreed. Sometimes it does. She turned and began to walk away. Then, she stopped and looked back at him over her shoulder. What is your name, human? Park Jiwoo. Park Jiwoo, she repeated, as if tasting the words. I will remember that name. Then she was gone, disappearing into the shadows like she had never been there at all. Jiwoo stood alone in the tunnel for a long time. His heart was beating fast, and he did not understand why. She was an alien princess. He was a maintenance worker. They existed in different worlds, different universes. This moment meant nothing. It would be forgotten by tomorrow. He gathered his tools and made his way back through the tunnels. When he reached the maintenance room, Yuna was waiting for him. Where were you? She demanded. You look like you saw a ghost. Something like that? Jiwoo said. He did not tell her about the princess. He did not tell anyone. It felt like a dream. Something too strange to be real. He went home that night and ate his dinner alone. He watched the news coverage of the diplomatic meeting. He saw the princess standing beside her parents, her face cold and formal. Nothing like the curious girl in the tunnel. He told himself to forget. He was nobody. She was royalty. Their paths would never cross again. He was wrong. 3 days later, at the formal reception that would change his life forever, the princess would walk past admirals and presidents to stand before him. She would raise her hand toward his face, and she would speak words that would echo across 2 civilizations. But Jiwoo did not know that yet. On that night, he was just a tired maintenance worker who had done his job and gone home. He fell asleep thinking about violet eyes and a voice that called him by name. Outside his window, the alien ships hung in the sky like silver promises. The stars had never seemed so close or so far away. The reception hall was the most beautiful thing Jiwoo had ever seen. Human architects and Valari designers had worked together to create something new. Crystal pillars rose toward a ceiling that showed both Earth's sky and distant Valari stars. Flowers from 2 worlds filled the air with strange and wonderful smells. Music played softly, mixing human instruments with Valari tones that seemed to touch the soul directly. Jiwoo was not supposed to be here. He had been fixing a light panel near the entrance when a general had grabbed his arm and pushed him inside. We need bodies, the general had hissed. The room looks empty. Stand against the wall and do not speak. So Jiwoo stood against the wall in his maintenance uniform, surrounded by people in formal clothes and military medals. He had never felt more out of place in his life. The room was full of important people. Earth's president stood near the center, surrounded by advisors. Generals and admirals formed small groups, their medals shining under the lights. Scientists, diplomats, and wealthy business leaders filled every corner. These were the people who would shape humanity's future among the stars. And then there were the Valari. The emperor stood like a statue of living silver, his face showing no emotion. He was ancient, Jiwoo knew, older than human civilization itself. His eyes had seen empires rise and fall across 1,000 worlds. Beside him, the empress moved with deadly grace, her beauty hiding something sharp and dangerous beneath the surface. But it was the princess who drew Jiwoo's eyes. She wore formal robes now, deep blue with silver threads that caught the light with every movement. Her moonlight hair was arranged in an elaborate style, held in place by pins that looked like frozen starlight. She looked nothing like the curious girl in the tunnel. She looked cold, distant, untouchable. Important people approached her one by one. Admirals spoke of military alliances. Scientists spoke of shared knowledge. Politicians spoke of trade and territory. The princess listened to each one with the same cold expression. She answered their words with polite nothings. She never smiled. Jiwoo watched from his place against the wall and felt a strange sadness. The girl in the tunnel had been alive, curious, real. This princess was a mask, a performance, a role being played for the watching crowds. He should leave. No one would notice. He could slip out the door and return to his tunnels and pipes where he belonged. This world of politics and power was not his world. He turned toward the exit. That was when the whispers started. At first, Jiwoo did not understand. People were pointing, gasping, stepping aside. A path was opening through the crowd, and at its center was the princess. She was walking, but not toward any of the important people who waited for her attention. She was walking toward the wall. She was walking toward him. Jiwoo felt his heart stop. This could not be happening. She could not remember him. He was nobody. A face in a tunnel. A moment already forgotten. But she kept coming, her violet eyes fixed on his face with an intensity that made it hard to breathe. The crowd fell silent. Every eye in the room turned to watch. The princess stopped in front of Jiwoo. She was taller than him, and she looked down with an expression he could not read. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then she raised her hand. Her fingers were long and elegant, silver skin glowing softly in the light. She reached toward his face, stopping just before her fingertips touched his cheek. It was a gesture that meant nothing to the humans watching. But the Valari in the room gasped. Some of them stepped back. The Empress made a sharp sound that might have been a word. "I have watched you, Park Jiwoo," the princess said. Her voice was clear and carried through the silent room. "I watched you save lives without seeking reward. I watched you share your food with those beneath your rank. I watched you calm a frightened servant with gentle words. I watched you fix what was broken and walk away without praise." Jiwoo could not speak. He could barely stand. "Among my people," she continued, "we choose our partners through alliance and advantage. We calculate worth through power and bloodline. But I have seen something different in humans. I have seen worth measured in small kindnesses, in quiet courage, in hearts that act before minds can stop them." She drew a breath. When she spoke again, her voice rang like a bell. "I declare my intent before my parents and my people. I declare it before the witnesses of two worlds." Her violet eyes burned into his. "I want him." The room exploded into chaos. Valari nobles shouted in outrage. Human diplomats stumbled over each other trying to understand what had happened. The Emperor's ancient face showed something that might have been surprise. The Empress moved forward, her hand raised as if to stop something that had already happened. But the princess did not move. She stood before Jiwoo like a shield against the storm. Her hand, still raised, toward his face. "You cannot do this," a Valari noble shouted. He was tall and handsome, with armor that marked him as a warrior of high rank. "You are promised to me. The alliance has been arranged for centuries." "No alliance was ever signed," the princess replied without looking at him. "No promise was ever spoken. You assumed, Lord Kethrin. I did not. He is human." Kethrin spat the word like poison. "He is nothing. A worker, a servant, an insect." Now the princess turned. Her eyes were cold, and for the first time, Jiwoo saw the power hidden beneath her gentle surface. "He is worth more than 100 of you. And I have made my choice." The Emperor finally spoke. His voice was deep and heavy, carrying the weight of ages. "Daughter, You understand what you have done. The declaration of intent is sacred. It cannot be taken back. I understand, Father. This human must prove his worth through the ancient trials. If he fails, he dies. If he refuses, war becomes possible between our peoples. I understand. The Emperor's violet eyes moved to Jiwoo. They studied him like a scientist, studying a strange new creature. And you, human? Do you understand what my daughter has done? She has bound your fate to hers. You have no choice now, but to face the trials or doom your entire species. Jiwoo's mouth was dry. His hands were shaking. Every instinct told him to run, to hide, to pretend. This was all a terrible dream. But he looked at the princess, at Lee, and he saw something in her eyes. Not cold calculation, not political maneuvering. Hope. She looked at him with hope. He did not know why she had chosen him. He did not understand the politics, or the traditions, or the ancient laws. But he understood one thing. She had taken a risk for him. She had challenged her entire civilization for a maintenance worker she barely knew. He could not let her stand alone. I understand, Jiwoo said. His voice was quiet, but in the silent room, everyone heard. I will face your trials. The princess smiled. It was the same small, quick smile from the tunnel. Real, and alive, and beautiful. Lord Kethrin stepped forward, his face twisted with rage. Then I invoke the trial of worth. Let this human prove himself or die trying. And when he fails, princess, you will have no choice but to accept a proper suitor. When he succeeds, Lee replied, you will kneel before him and beg forgiveness. She turned back to Jiwoo. Gently, carefully, she lowered her hand until her fingers touched his cheek. Her skin was cool and smooth, like touching moonlight made solid. Do not be afraid, she whispered, soft enough that only he could hear. Jiwoo looked into her violet eyes and felt something change inside him. He was still nobody. He was still a maintenance worker from Seoul. But maybe, just maybe, being nobody was enough. Maybe it was more than enough. The next morning, Jiwoo woke up in a room that was not his own. The bed was too soft. The ceiling was too high. The walls were made of something that looked like crystal but felt warm to the touch. Through the window, he could see Earth hanging in the blackness of space. Blue and green, and heartbreakingly far away. He was on the Valari flagship, a ship called the Throne of Stars. They had brought him here last night. After the chaos of the reception, diplomats had argued. Generals had shouted. His supervisor had fainted. But in the end, there was nothing anyone could do. The princess had made her declaration, and Jiwoo had accepted the trials. The ancient laws were clear. Now he was alone in an alien ship, waiting to prove his worth or die trying. A soft chime rang through the room. The door opened, and Kim Yuna walked in. Jiwoo sat up so fast he almost fell out of bed. Yuna? How are you here? I volunteered, she said, crossing her arms. Her eyes were red, like she had been crying, but her voice was angry. Someone has to keep you alive, you idiot. What were you thinking? I was not thinking, Jiwoo admitted. She looked at me. And I could not say no. Yuna stared at him for a long moment. Then she sighed and sat down on the edge of his bed. You always were too kind for your own good. Remember when you gave your lunch to that stray cat for 3 weeks? You almost starved. The cat was hungry. The cat was fat. You were the hungry one. She shook her head. And now, you have done it again. Except this time, the cat is an alien princess, and the price is not your lunch. It is your life. Jiwoo had no answer to that. A second chime rang. This time, when the door opened, the princess entered. She wore simpler clothes now, a flowing silver dress that made her look younger, more human somehow. Her moonlight hair hung loose around her shoulders. Yuna jumped to her feet and bowed so low her forehead almost touched the floor. "Please," Liray said gently. "You do not need to bow. You are his friend. That makes you important to me." Yuna slowly straightened, her eyes wide. She looked at Jiwoo with an expression that said, "This is real. This is actually happening." Liray walked to the window and looked out at the stars. For a moment, she was silent. Then she spoke without turning around. "I owe you an explanation, Park Jiwoo. I owe you the truth of why I chose you." "You said you watched me," Jiwoo replied. "You saw me fix the environmental system. I saw more than that." She turned to face him. "When I first arrived on your planet, I expected to find primitive creatures. My tutors had taught me that humans were young and foolish, barely evolved beyond animals. But what I saw was different." She began to pace, her hands clasped behind her back. "I saw your people working together without being commanded. I saw kindness given freely, without expectation of return. I saw a maintenance worker share his meal with a junior colleague who had forgotten her lunch. I saw that same worker calm a frightened Valari servant who had become lost in your corridors. I saw him fix a broken system and walk away without telling anyone, without seeking praise or reward." Jiwoo felt his face grow hot. "Those are small things. Anyone would do them." "No," Liray said firmly. "Among my people, those things would never happen. We act only for advantage. We give only to receive. We have built an empire that spans 1,000 stars, but we have forgotten how to be kind without reason." Her voice grew soft. "I wanted something different. I wanted someone who was good, simply because it was right to be good." The door opened again. This time, a Valari man entered. He was older than Liray, with the look of someone who had spent his life serving others. His robes marked him as an advisor of high rank. "Your Highness," he said with a bow. "Your parents request your presence. The council is gathering to discuss the trials." "Your Highness." Liray nodded. Before she left, she touched Jiwoo's hand briefly. "I will explain the trials to you tonight. For now, rest. You will need your strength." Then she was gone. Jiwoo and Yuna sat in silence for a long time. "She is not what I expected." "No," Jiwoo agreed. "She is not. Do you think you can survive these trials?" Jiwoo looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, Valari nobles were plotting his death. Somewhere, Lord Kethrin was sharpening his weapons and dreaming of revenge. And somewhere, Earth was watching, waiting to see if one ordinary man could carry the hopes of an entire species. "I do not know," he said honestly, "but I have to try." That evening, Liray returned as promised. She brought food from both worlds and sat with Jiwoo while she explained what he would face. The trial of worth had 3 parts. First came mind, a test of intelligence and strategy. He would face a simulation designed by Valari war masters, a puzzle that had defeated generals and strategists for generations. Second came body, a physical challenge against a Valari champion. Not to the death, but brutal enough that few survived without serious injury. Third came spirit, an examination by the Emperor himself, where Jiwoo would be placed under a neural probe that forced complete honesty. The mind trial tests if you are clever enough to stand beside a princess, Liray explained. The body trial tests if you are strong enough to protect her. The spirit trial tests if your heart is true. And if I fail any of them, then you die. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. And I will be forced to marry Lord Kethrin to prevent war between our peoples. Jiwoo felt cold. You knew this when you chose me. You knew what you were risking. Yes. Why? Why take such a risk for someone you barely know? Why? 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 Liray was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Because I am tired of a life without meaning. I am tired of being a piece on a game board, moved by hands that do not care about my happiness. When I saw you in that tunnel, working alone in the dark to save lives that were not even your own species, I felt something I had not felt in centuries. What? She looked at him with those violet eyes. Hope. Ji-woo did not know what to say. He was just a maintenance worker. He fixed pipes and replaced wires. He was not a hero. He was not worthy of hope. But looking at Lee-Ray, at the desperate light in her eyes, he made a decision. He would not fail. He could not fail. Not for Earth, not for politics, but for her, for the princess who had seen something in him that he could not see in himself. Tell me everything, he said. Every rule, every trick, every weakness. I will learn, I will prepare, and I will win. Lee-Ray smiled. And for the first time since the reception, Ji-woo saw tears in her eyes. I knew I chose correctly, she whispered. I knew it. Outside the window, the stars burned cold and eternal. Somewhere among them, Ji-woo's fate was waiting. He did not know if he would survive. He did not know if he was worthy, but he knew one thing with absolute certainty. He would not give up without a fight. The challenge grounds were vast. A great arena floated in the center of the throne of stars, surrounded by viewing platforms where thousands of Valari had gathered to watch. Holographic screens displayed the event across the entire empire. On Earth, billions watched through transmitted signals, holding their breath for a man most had never heard of until 3 days ago. Ji-woo stood at the arena's entrance, wearing simple clothes that the Valari had provided. No armor, no weapons, nothing but his mind and his body, and whatever courage he could find in his heart. Yuna stood beside him, her face pale but determined. Remember what Lee-Ray told you. The mind trial is not about winning. It is about how you think. Remember. I remember. And the body trial is not about strength. It is about endurance. I remember. And the spirit trial. She stopped. Actually, she did not give you much advice for that one. She said to tell the truth. That is all I can do. A horn sounded, deep and resonant. The first trial was beginning. Ji-woo walked into the arena alone. The space around him changed. Suddenly, he was standing on a holographic battlefield, surrounded by armies and fortresses and strategic positions. A voice spoke from everywhere and nowhere. You command the blue forces. Your goal is to capture the enemy fortress. You have 1 hour. Begin. 1. 1. 1. Ji-woo looked at the battlefield and felt his heart sink. He knew nothing about military tactics. He had never commanded anyone in his life. The simulation was designed for generals and war masters, not maintenance workers. But then he stopped and looked closer. He saw supply lines, power systems, communication networks, infrastructure. The things that kept an army running. The things that broke and needed fixing. He smiled. For the next hour, Ji-woo did not try to fight like a general. Instead, he fought like an engineer. He identified the enemy's supply chains and disrupted them. He found weaknesses in their power grid and exploited them. He turned their communication systems against them, sending false orders and creating confusion. The Valari watching were confused at first. This was not how the trial was supposed to be fought. But slowly, the enemy army began to fall apart. Not from direct attacks, but from 1,000 small failures. Weapons that would not fire, vehicles that would not start, messages that never arrived. When the hour ended, Ji-woo had not captured the fortress, but the enemy army was in complete chaos, unable to defend or attack. The fortress stood alone, surrounded by broken machines and confused soldiers. The judging council argued for a long time. Finally, the head judge spoke. The trial requires capturing the fortress. This was not achieved. A murmur of disappointment ran through the crowd. However, the trial also measures strategic thinking and creative problem-solving. The human has demonstrated both in ways our war masters have never seen. He paused. The first trial is past. The crowd erupted. Some cheered. Many more shouted in anger. But the decision was made. Jiwoo allowed himself one moment of relief. Then the arena changed again. The second trial was body. A Valari warrior stepped into the arena. He was huge, nearly 7 feet tall, with muscles that seemed carved from silver stone. His name was Commander Voss, and he had never lost a combat trial in 300 years. The rules are simple, the judge announced. Combat continues until one participant cannot continue. Lethal force is forbidden, but not prevented. Medical teams are standing by. Voss smiled at Jiwoo with teeth that looked too sharp. I will try to make this quick, human. You do not deserve to suffer for your princess's foolish choice. The horn sounded. Voss attacked immediately, moving faster than something that large should be able to move. Jiwoo barely dodged the first blow, feeling the wind of it against his face. The second blow caught his shoulder and sent him spinning across the arena floor. Pain exploded through his body. He rolled and forced himself to stand. Voss was already coming again. For the next 30 minutes, Jiwoo did not try to win. He could not win. Voss was stronger, faster, better trained. Every blow that landed felt like being hit by a vehicle. Jiwoo's vision blurred, his ribs cracked, blood filled his mouth. But he did not fall. Every time Voss knocked him down, Jiwoo stood back up. Every time Voss thought the fight was over, Jiwoo proved him wrong. He dodged when he could, took hits when he could not, and refused, absolutely refused, to stay down. The crowd fell silent. Even those who hated him watched with growing respect. Voss grew frustrated, then confused, then exhausted. He was not used to opponents who would not yield. Each attack cost him energy. Each missed blow cost him more. After 45 minutes, his movements were slow and heavy. After an hour, he was breathing hard, his silver skin drenched in sweat. Jiwoo stood before him, broken and bleeding, barely able to see. But he stood. Yield, Voss demanded, his voice cracking. Why will you not yield? Jiwoo spat blood onto the arena floor. Because she believed in me, he said. Because she chose me when no one else would. I will not let her down. Jiwoo spat blood. I will not let her down. Voss raised his fist for another blow. Then, he stopped. He looked at Jiwoo. Really looked. And something changed in his eyes. I yield, he said quietly. The crowd gasped. The judges were stunned. A champion of 300 years had yielded to a broken human who could barely stand. Voss knelt before Jiwoo, a gesture of deep respect among Valari warriors. I have fought thousands of opponents, he said. I have never met one with a spirit like yours. You did not defeat me with strength. You defeated me with something I do not have a word for. Larn. Stubbornness, Jiwoo managed to say. Humans call it stubbornness. Despite everything, Voss laughed. Medical teams rushed to help Jiwoo. They healed his wounds with technology that felt like magic, closing cuts and mending bones in minutes. By the time the third trial began, he was whole again, tired but whole. The spirit trial was held in a smaller chamber, away from the crowds. Only the Emperor, the Empress, and Princess Lirei were present. Jiwoo was placed in a chair, and a device was lowered onto his head. This probe reads your deepest truths, the Emperor said. You cannot lie. You cannot hide. I will ask you questions, and your soul will answer. Jiwoo nodded. He had nothing to hide. The Emperor's first question cut straight to the heart. Do you love my daughter? Jiwoo felt the probe searching his mind. I do not know, he answered honestly. I barely know her. But I feel something. Something that could become love, if given time. Do you seek power through this union? No, I never wanted power. I just wanted to fix things and live a simple life. Then why did you accept the trials? You could have refused. You could have returned to your simple life. Jiwoo was silent for a moment. The probe hummed, searching for his truth. Because she looked at me like I mattered, he finally said. No one has ever looked at me like that. When she chose me, I felt seen for the first time in my life. I could not walk away from that. I could not walk away from her. The emperor studied him with ancient, unreadable eyes. Then he turned to his daughter. His heart is true, he said. The trials are complete. He has proven his worth. Liray's face broke into a smile so bright it seemed to light the room. She ran to Jiwoo and took his hands in hers. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it. I told you I would try, Jiwoo said. Far away, on Earth, billions of humans cheered. In the arena, even some Valari joined them. A maintenance worker from Seoul had faced the impossible and survived. But in the shadows, Lord Kethran watched with hatred in his eyes. This human had won today. But Kethran would make sure he did not live to enjoy his victory. The Valari homeworld was called Velar Prime, and it was beautiful in a way that hurt to look at. Crystal cities rose from silver seas. Gardens floated on platforms of light, filled with flowers that sang when the wind touched them. The sky was painted in colors that had no names in human languages, shifting and dancing like living art. Jiwoo stood on a balcony of the Crystal Palace and tried to understand how he had ended up here. 2 months had passed since the trials. 2 months of preparation for the bonding ceremony that would officially make him Liray's consort. 2 months of living in a world that did not want him. The beauty of Velar Prime was a lie. Behind the crystal walls and singing flowers, hatred waited. The servants whispered when he passed. The nobles turned their backs when he entered a room. Twice, he had found poison in his food. Once, a section of balcony had collapsed beneath his feet. Only quick reflexes had saved his life. Lord Kethran was behind it all. Jiwoo was certain. But Kethran was too clever to leave evidence. He smiled at Jiwoo during public events and spoke words of false friendship. Meanwhile, his assassins crept through the shadows. Liray was fighting her own battles. The court questioned her constantly. Was she certain about her choice? Would she not reconsider? A human consort was an insult to Valari blood. Surely she could see that now. She never wavered. Every day, she defended Jiwoo with words sharp as swords. Every night, she came to his chambers and sat with him, talking about everything and nothing. In those quiet hours, Jiwoo began to understand her better. She was lonely. She had been lonely for centuries, trapped in a role she never chose, surrounded by people who wanted her power, but not her heart. When she looked at Jiwoo, she saw freedom, a chance to be more than a princess, a chance to be herself. Jiwoo began to understand something else too. The feeling in his chest, the warmth that spread through him whenever she smiled, the ache when she was away. The emperor had asked if he loved her. Now he knew the answer. One morning, a ship arrived from Earth carrying someone Jiwoo had desperately missed. His younger sister, Baek Sujin, walked off the shuttle with fire in her eyes and a tool bag over her shoulder. You look terrible, she announced, pulling him into a fierce hug. Have you been eating? Sleeping? Why are there dark circles under your eyes? It is nice to see you too, Sujin. She was 25 years old, a starship engineer who had graduated at the top of her class. When Earth had asked for volunteers to support Jiwoo on Velar Prime, she had been first in line. Someone has to keep you alive, she said, echoing Yuna's words from months ago. You have always been too kind and too stupid to look after yourself. Having Sujin nearby changed things. She had none of Jiwoo's quiet patience. When a noble insulted her brother, she insulted him right back. When servants tried to give Jiwoo spoiled food, she made them eat it first. When an engineer attempted to sabotage Jiwoo's rooms, she caught him, fixed the sabotage, and improved the systems so thoroughly that even Valari engineers were impressed. "Your sister is terrifying," Liray said one evening, and she sounded delighted. "She has always been the strong one," Jiwoo admitted. "When our parents died, she raised me more than I raised her. I do not know what I would do without her." Liray took his hand. It was a gesture that had become familiar between them. A small intimacy that spoke louder than words. "You will never have to find out. She is family now. My family." But the shadows continued to grow. The High Priestess Valira came to examine Jiwoo. She was ancient even by Valari standards. Her silver skin faded to white, her eyes clouded with age. The religious leader of an empire. She had the power to stop the bonding ceremony with a single word. "Humans do not have souls," she declared. "Your science proves this. You have no spiritual energy, no connection to the cosmic forces that created life. How can you bond with a princess whose soul is infinite?" Jiwoo had no answer. He did not understand Valari religion. But Liray stepped forward, her chin raised in defiance. "If humans have no souls, then explain why they create art that moves us to tears. Explain why they love so fiercely that they die for each other. Explain why this man faced impossible trials and won through pure force of spirit." Her voice rang through the chamber. "Well, if that is not a soul, then the word has no meaning." Valira was silent for a long time. Then she spoke quietly. "I will watch the ceremony. I will decide then if your human is worthy of our blessings." It was not approval, but it was not rejection either. The night before the bonding ceremony, everything fell apart. Jiwoo was walking through the palace gardens when he heard voices ahead. He moved quietly, a habit from his years in maintenance tunnels, and listened from behind a flowering tree. Lord Kethrin was speaking to a group of officers. His voice was low and urgent. "Tomorrow, during the festival, we strike. The Emperor will be distracted by the ceremony. Our forces will secure the palace before anyone realizes what is happening. The Empress will be taken hostage. The princess will have no choice but to submit." "And the human?" an officer asked. "Kill him, slowly if possible. Make sure the princess watches. She needs to understand the consequences of her foolish choices." Cold terror washed through Jiwoo. This was not just another assassination attempt. This was a coup. Kethrin meant to overthrow the entire empire. He ran. He found Liray in her chambers and told her everything. Her face went pale, then hard with determination. "We must warn my father. Kethrin will have people watching. If we move too obviously, he will know and strike early. Then what do we do?" Jiwoo's mind raced. He thought about systems and infrastructure, about the small things that kept great machines running. He thought about the servants and guards who had shown him kindness despite their orders. He thought about his sister, brilliant and fierce, waiting in her workshop. "We prepare," he said slowly. "We gather allies. We use their plan against them." "How?" Jiwoo looked at her with eyes that had seen enough tunnels and pipes and broken systems to know how things really worked. "Your people wait for orders. They wait for authority. But humans do not wait. We act. Tomorrow, we show them what that means." Liray stared at him for a long moment. Then she smiled, and in that smile was something wild and free. "I knew I chose correctly," she whispered. Outside, the crystal city sparkled under alien stars. Somewhere in the darkness, enemies plotted, and armies prepared. Tomorrow would bring chaos and blood, and possibly death. But tonight, a princess and a maintenance worker made their plans. They gathered servants who were tired of cruelty. They recruited guards who remembered honor. They prepared systems and signals and traps. When the sun rose on Velar Prime, Lord Kethrin would learn an important lesson. Never underestimate a human with nothing to lose and everything to fight for. The Festival of Stars was the holiest day on Velar Prime. Every citizen gathered to watch the sky change colors, to celebrate the cosmic forces that had created their empire. This year, The festival was combined with the bonding ceremony. The entire planet had come to witness history. Jiwoo stood in the preparation chamber, dressed in ceremonial robes of silver and blue. Yuna was adjusting his collar while Sujin checked the small device hidden in his sleeve. "The communication network is ready," Sujin whispered. "Every servant and guard we recruited has a receiver. When you give the signal, they will act. And the evidence? Uploaded to every broadcast system on the planet. Encrypted and hidden. One word from you, and it goes live." Jiwoo nodded. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. 3 years of maintenance work had taught him to stay calm during emergencies. This was just another broken system that needed fixing. A very large, very dangerous broken system. The ceremony began at sunset. Thousands filled the Crystal Plaza, their faces turned toward the great stage where the Emperor and Empress sat in thrones of living light. Beside them stood Liray, beautiful in white robes that caught every color of the changing sky. Jiwoo walked toward her across a bridge of crystal. With each step, he felt the weight of billions watching. Human and Valari alike held their breath. This moment would be remembered forever. He reached Liray and took her hands. Her fingers were trembling. "Are you ready?" She breathed, too quiet for anyone else to hear. "No," he admitted. "But I will be. When I need to be." The Emperor rose. His voice echoed across the plaza. "We gather to witness a union between worlds. Let those who object speak now, or forever hold their peace." The silence stretched for exactly 3 heartbeats. Then Lord Kethrin stepped forward. "I object," he declared, his voice ringing clear. "I object to this mockery of our traditions. I object to this human contaminating our bloodline. And I object to an emperor who allows such shame to fall upon our people." The crowd gasped. Such words were treason. Kethrin did not wait for a response. He raised his hand, and the sky exploded with ships, hundreds of them, bearing his house colors, descending upon the Crystal Palace like silver hawks. Armed soldiers rushed from hidden positions throughout the plaza. Screams filled the air. The Empress was seized before her guards could react. The Emperor was surrounded. Weapons pointed at his head. Kethrin's soldiers formed a ring around the stage, cutting off any escape. "Do not resist," Kethrin announced, walking toward the stage with triumph in his eyes. "This will go easier if you cooperate. The Emperor will abdicate. The princess will marry me. The human will die, and the Empire will be purified." He stopped in front of Jiwoo, smiling with all his sharp teeth. "Did you really think you could stand among us? Did you really think you could become one of us? You are nothing. You have always been nothing." Jiwoo looked at him calmly. "You are wrong." "About what?" "Your worthlessness. About everything." Jiwoo smiled. "Especially about humans." He touched the device on his sleeve. Everything happened at once. Throughout the palace and the plaza, servants and guards moved. Not the ones Kethrin had recruited, but the ones he had ignored. The ones he had treated as invisible, as tools, as nothing. They had been watching and waiting for this moment. Power systems failed throughout Kethrin's ships. Their engines sputtered and died, leaving them hanging helplessly in the sky. Communication networks scrambled, sending false orders to his forces. Doors that should have opened stayed closed. Weapons that should have fired remained silent. "What is happening?" Kethrin screamed. "What have you done?" "I did what I always do," Jiwoo replied. "I fixed a broken system." Then the broadcasts began. Every screen on Valar Prime lit up with recordings. Kethrin plotting treason. Kethrin ordering assassinations. Kethrin promising to sell Valari secrets to enemy empires for power. His own voice, his own words, played for billions to hear. The soldiers surrounding the Emperor hesitated. These were not evil men, just men who had followed orders. And now, they heard the truth about the man they served. "Lies!" Kethrin shouted. These are human tricks. Do not listen. But the evidence was undeniable. Even his own officers began to lower their weapons. Catherine's face twisted with rage. He drew a blade from his robes, a weapon meant for the ceremonial duel he had planned with Jiwoo. But there would be no duel now. No honor, no rules, just murder. He lunged at Jiwoo. Liray moved faster. She stepped between them, her own blade appearing from nowhere, and met Catherine's strike with a ring of metal that echoed across the plaza. You forget, she said coldly, that princesses are also trained to fight. They dueled across the stage, silver blades flashing in the festival light. Catherine was larger and stronger, but Liray was quick and fierce. She had centuries of training and a lifetime of anger behind every strike. Jiwoo wanted to help, but he had other work to do. He moved through the chaos, using his knowledge of the palace systems to free the Empress, to signal loyal guards, to coordinate the servants who were taking down Catherine's confused soldiers one by one. Sujin appeared beside him, her tool bag converted into a weapon that sparked with electrical discharge. The ships are disabled, she reported. Their forces are surrendering throughout the city. We are winning. Liray needs help. No. Sujin grabbed his arm. Look at her. She needs to do this herself. Jiwoo looked. Liray was bleeding from a cut on her arm, but her eyes were blazing with determination. This was not just a fight. This was her moment. Her chance to prove herself to everyone who had ever called her weak or foolish for loving a human. Catherine was tiring. His strikes grew wild, desperate. And then, Liray saw her opening. She moved like water, sliding past his guard, and drove her blade through his shoulder. He screamed and fell to his knees. His weapon clattered to the ground. Liray stood over him, her blade at his throat. The entire plaza fell silent. I should kill you, she said quietly. For treason. For attempted murder. For every life you destroyed in your quest for power. Do it, Catherine spat. Show everyone what you really are. But Liray lowered her blade. No. You do not deserve a warrior's death. You deserve to face justice from the people you betrayed. She turned to the crowd, to the billions watching across the empire. Her voice rang clear and strong. This is what happens when we choose cruelty over kindness, when we value power over honor, when we ignore the small people who hold our world together. She reached out her hand toward Jiwoo. A human showed me another way. A better way. Not through strength or conquest, but through courage and compassion. Jiwoo took her hand and stood beside her. Around them, the chaos was settling. Catherine's forces were surrendering. The Emperor and Empress were free. The coup had failed. Today we were saved by servants and workers, Liray continued. By people we overlooked and ignored. By humans who taught them that anyone can be a hero. She raised Jiwoo's hand high. This is the future of our empire. Not purity of blood, but purity of heart. The crowd was silent. Then, slowly, a sound began. Clapping, cheering, first from the servants, then from the guards, then from citizens who had watched everything unfold. The sound grew until it shook the crystal walls of the palace. Even some of the nobles joined in. The emperor stepped forward, his ancient face showing something new. Pride, respect, hope. The ceremony will continue, he declared. Let no one say the Valari do not honor courage, regardless of where it comes from. As the festival lights blazed brighter than ever, Jiwoo looked at Liray and smiled. We survived, he said. We did more than survive, she replied. We changed everything. Around them, two civilizations celebrated, not just a bonding ceremony, but the birth of something new, something that would echo across the stars for generations to come. And at the center of it all stood a maintenance worker from Seoul, holding the hand of an alien princess, wondering how his life had become so strange and so wonderful. Velar Prime had changed in ways that Jiwoo still could not believe. Servants walked with their heads held high, their voices heard in councils that had once ignored them. Human engineers worked alongside Velari scientists, combining knowledge from two civilizations. Trade ships carried not just goods between worlds, but ideas, art, music, and hope. Lord Kethrin was imprisoned in the deepest part of the Crystal Palace, his name erased from noble records. His supporters had been scattered, their schemes exposed by the same servants they had treated as invisible. The Empire had learned a painful lesson about the cost of cruelty. Jiwoo stood in the same balcony where he had stood 1 year ago, looking out at the silver seas and singing gardens. But everything was different now. The servants who passed smiled at him. The nobles who had once turned their backs now bowed with respect. He was no longer an outsider. He was family. The door opened behind him, and Liray walked in. She wore simple clothes today, a flowing dress of pale blue that reminded him of Earth's sky. Her moonlight hair was loose around her shoulders. She looked nothing like a princess, and everything like the woman he had fallen in love with. "You are thinking again," she said, wrapping her arms around him from behind. "I can always tell when you are thinking. Your face gets that look." "What look?" "Like a maintenance worker trying to fix a broken pipe." He laughed. "Some habits never change." She rested her chin on his shoulder and looked out at the view with him. "Everything. Nothing. How strange life is." He paused. "I was a nobody 1 year ago. I fixed pipes and ate my meals alone and never thought about the future. Now I am standing on an alien world, about to complete a ceremony that will bind me to a princess forever. Do you regret it?" "Never." He turned in her arms so he could face her. "But I still do not understand why you chose me. You could have had anyone. Generals, princes, heroes. Why a maintenance worker from Seoul?" Liray smiled. And it was the same smile he had seen in that tunnel long ago. Real and alive and beautiful. Because generals see only battles, princes see only power, heroes see only glory. She touched his face gently. "You saw a broken pipe and fixed it without being asked. You saw a frightened servant and offered comfort without expecting thanks. You saw a lonely princess and gave her hope without knowing what it would cost you. Those are small things." "No." Her voice was firm. "Those are the only things that matter. Your people have a saying. Character is what you do when no one is watching. I watched you when you thought no one was watching, and I saw someone extraordinary, pretending to be ordinary." Jiwoo felt his eyes grow wet. After everything that had happened, after all the trials and battles and near-death experiences, these simple words touched him more deeply than anything else. "I love you," he said. It was the first time he had spoken the words aloud. "I know." Her violet eyes sparkled with tears of her own. "I have been waiting for you to say it. Why did you not tell me?" "Because you needed to find it yourself. Love is not something that can be declared or demanded. It has to grow, like one of your earth flowers, from a small seed into something beautiful." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the alien sun begin to set over crystal spires. The bonding ceremony was scheduled for that evening. The same ceremony that had been interrupted by Kethrin's coup 1 year ago. This time, there would be no interruptions. The Empire was at peace. The servants and guards were vigilant. And Jiwoo had learned enough Velari politics to spot danger before it struck. But before the ceremony, the Emperor requested a private audience. Jiwoo found him in the throne room, alone for the first time since they had met. The ancient Velari looked different without his advisors and guards. Smaller, somehow, more human. "Sit," the Emperor said, gesturing to a chair beside his throne. Jiwoo sat. "My daughter has told me much about you," the Emperor began. "But I wanted to speak with you directly. 1 year ago, you were forced into this path. The declaration of intent left you no choice but to face the trials or doom your people. Tonight, before the ceremony completes, I am giving you a choice. A choice? You may leave. Return to Earth with full honors. The political alliance between our species is secure, regardless of what happens tonight. You owe us nothing. You have already given more than anyone expected. Jiwoo was silent for a long moment. He thought about Earth, his small apartment, his maintenance tunnels, a life that was simple and safe and ordinary. Then he thought about Liray, her smile in the tunnel, her tears when he passed the trials, her fierce determination during the coup, her gentle touch when they were alone. "Why are you giving me this choice?" he asked. The Emperor's ancient eyes softened. "Because I was young once. Because I know what it means to be trapped by duty. And because my daughter deserves someone who chooses her freely, not because the laws gave him no other option." Jiwoo stood. He looked at the Emperor, at the throne room, at the crystal walls that had become his home. "I choose her," he said simply. "Not because of duty or politics or ancient laws. Because she saw me when no one else did. Because she gave me hope when I had none. Because she is the best thing that has ever happened to me, and I would be a fool to walk away." The Emperor smiled. It was a rare expression on his ancient face. "Then you are worthy of her after all. Not because you passed the trials, but because you understand what truly matters." That evening, as the Festival of Stars blazed across the sky, Jiwoo and Liray stood before two civilizations and completed the bonding ceremony. The words were ancient and beautiful, speaking of souls entwined across stars and time. But the moment Jiwoo would remember forever was simpler. Liray's hand in his, her violet eyes locked on his, the soft whisper only he could hear. "Thank you for choosing me. Thank you for seeing me," he whispered back. High Priestess Valira spoke the final blessing. Her voice rang through the plaza with surprising warmth. "I have watched this human for 1 year. I have seen him face death with courage. I have seen him show kindness without reward. I have seen him inspire servants to become heroes and enemies to become allies." She paused. "If this is not a soul, then I do not know what a soul is. I bless this union with all the authority of our faith." The crowd erupted in cheers. Human and Valari voices mixed together, a sound that would have been impossible 2 years ago. Yuna was crying, trying to hide it behind her hands. Sujin was cheering louder than anyone, her sharp voice cutting through the noise. Somewhere in the crowd, Commander Voss was smiling with surprising warmth. The Emperor raised his hand for silence. "Today marks more than a ceremony," he announced. "Today marks the beginning of a new era. An era where species are judged not by blood or power, but by the content of their character." He looked at Jiwoo with respect that had been hard-earned. "A human taught us this. A maintenance worker who never sought glory but found it anyway. Let his story be remembered for all generations." Years would pass. Jiwoo and Liray would have children, beautiful hybrid beings who carried the best of both worlds. Those children would become symbols of unity, ambassadors of peace, proof that love could bridge any divide. When people asked how humanity earned its place among the stars, the Valari would tell a story. Not of generals or presidents, not of weapons or technology. They would tell the story of Park Ji-woo, a maintenance worker from Seoul who fixed a broken pipe and won the heart of a princess. They would tell of a man who proved that heroism was not about strength or power or glory. It was about kindness, courage, the choice to do what was right when no one was watching. They would tell of the day an alien princess pointed at a nobody and declared, "I want him." And the nobody said yes. On the balcony of the Crystal Palace, as the Festival of Stars painted the sky in impossible colors, Jiwoo held his wife close and looked up at the universe that had become his home. "Do you ever miss your old life?" Liray asked softly. Jiwoo thought about pipes and tunnels and lonely dinners. He thought about being invisible, being overlooked, Being nobody. No, he said. You showed me what I could become. That is worth more than anything I left behind. Lyrae smiled and leaned her head against his shoulder. Good. Because you are stuck with me. Forever. Now. I can think of worse fates. They laughed together, their voices mixing with the cheers still rising from the plaza below. Two hearts from two worlds, bound by choice rather than chance. The stars had never seemed so bright. And somewhere in the maintenance tunnels of the Crystal Palace, a young Valari servant was fixing a broken pipe. He was humming a human song he had learned from a strange man named Jiwoo. He was smiling. The story was just beginning.